No matter how much I look into Superstar Saga content, I've never seen anyone who has interpreted this game correctly. You people have butchered this game's meaning, and over the course of this video, I am going to dissect this game, leaving everyone with the correct understanding, starting with Act 1. Our first overlooked moment is the phenomenon of Peach's text bubbles being able to drop bombs. This usually is just seen as a funny fourth wall breaking plot point, however this scene was actually created to tell the player that the text boxes we see are not just for the player, but actually exist physically in their world. Soon after, when Bowser's baddies arrive, we notice that they are color coordinated to either green or red. This means that Bowser specifically trains his minions to either face Mr. Green or Mario. This shows that no matter how brash Bowser is, his coordination of military efforts is extremely smart. When Mr. Green deserts Bowser, he's actually possessed by a yellow ghost, causing his skin tone to change and him to uncharacteristically run away. In Bowser's airship, there are many instances of us needing to shove Goombas into barrels. Though, with the barrels not being open and only having little cracks, it's kinda weird that the Goombas are able to squeeze in between these cracks, which must mean Goombas have similar characteristics to cats when they can squeeze under doors, compressing their bodies to less than half their size. Also on Bowser's ship, we get to see a really interesting fact about Green Guy here. When he gets lifted up by this crane claw, we actually learn that he can catch really well, cause there's no way he got those binoculars without catching them. During the Fawful fight, Fawful has a really odd tendency. Since we've already established that text boxes are physical in this world, why does Fawful scream out Think Rat in colored text, allowing the bros to dodge easily? The only plausible answer to this is Fawful was fed false information telling him that the brothers were colorblind. This made Fawful want to taunt them by making his text colored since they wouldn't be able to see it. After Fawful crashes the Koopa Cruiser, we thankfully recover, but as we do so, we learn of the fact that Bowser's not paid off the Koopa Cruiser yet, and unfortunately, with him now stuck in the Bean Bean Kingdom, he's definitely gonna miss some payments and lose a bunch of his credit score. Though before we truly make it into the bulk of Stardust Fields, we have to pass the Border Bros. These guys are super excited to see Mario and Green's stash, so they make them show off their signature jumps. While this alone is fine since the bros are used to interacting with fans, after this interaction they forgot to check Mario and Luigi's passports for entry into the Bean Bean Kingdom, which unfortunately got them fired a day after Mario and Green's stash entered. Now that we are in the thick of Stardust Fields, we start to encounter a bunch of fighter flies. While everyone else will point out the name's play on words and leave it at that, the way they attack also demonstrates the fight or flight instinct, with their fake-outs actually being them constantly switching between fight and flight. And of course, this wouldn't be Stardust Fields without the Starshade Bros. With these being the third pair of bros we meet in this game, we finally get something to show for it with them teaching us the spin and high jump. Though, weirdly, if we look at how both of these movements work, it seems as though Greeny is the one who inputs the most work, with only the high jump requiring a slight bit from Mario, showing that Green is extremely capable when it comes to physical strength. With our new jumps earning us enough coins, we go to bail out Bowser just for Tolstar to turn on us and start a fight. While many shrug off Tolstar calling off the deal, attributing it to his evil nature, it seems Tolstar was actually just jealous of the bros' money-making ability, and the fact they made 100 coins in such a short time span infuriated him. Unfortunately, defeating Tolstar still did not free Bowser from the cannon, and due to his gripping, Sergeant Starshade decides to shoot Bowser straight into the side of Hoohoo Mountain, which while I wish there was a better story reason for this happening, this was simply done to nerf the players since Bowser joining the party would have made the game too easy. Now on to Hoohoo Mountain. As soon as we get here, we instantly get falsely accused of a crime, with the knights going so far as to lie about having witnesses that saw us. While their urgency can be seen as genuine, they seemingly only want a conviction, which must mean that they are in this for the bounty money and not to save the prince. And to further our previous point about Tolstar, we clearly see here that he is only vouching for us in hopes that we will divulge our money-making methods to him next time we meet. Hoohoo Village is filled with people of the Hoohoo tribe who weirdly all have something similar to say. Most of the first Hoohoo in this village will allude to either one of two things, either telling you the exit is to the left of the village, or they will constantly nudge you to go to the top of the mountain. While these would be normal to say to tourists, it's weird that there is such a divide amongst the Hoohoo people, which means, in Hoohoo politics, there must be a massive divide on whether or not their economy should be centered around tourism or not, leading to some welcoming tourists and some wanting them to leave. Though as if despite the anti-tourist political party, Fawful decides to put a rock with a face in our way to prevent us from leaving. While the rock is inanimate and the face is merely carved into the stone, Fawful carved this face in hopes that Mario and Luigi would get so emotionally attached to the rock that once they need to leave, they can't bring themselves to break their pet rock. Though as the bros have no hammer to face this moral dilemma, we make our way to the Hammerhead bros, in which we walk in on them bashing their heads against a rock. While we learn all the details needed to get a hammer of our own, we don't get informed on how they avoid getting concussions in this line of work. Thinking delicately about this matter, it's safe to assume unlike human skulls, the Hammerhead bros have padded skull interiors, preventing the bruising on the brain that causes concussions. Now that we are at the Hoohoo Mountain ascent, we start encountering its main enemy, the beanie, which sadly is sort of a missed opportunity because if it was actually shaped like a beanie, the play on words would be fire. In many cases during our ascent, Mario needs to suck up a bunch of water to activate tornado mechanisms all across the mountain. This sight is odd, but to answer the elephant in the room, no one has ever figured out how Mario is able to fit so much junk in his trunk during these sections. And speaking of these tornadoes, which are more similar to dust devils, it seems as though Mario and Green Nose somehow can withstand 45 to 80 mph winds, without getting dizzy or scratched from the dust debris. While you may think this is another facet added to the brothers' physical strengths, this is actually all mental, with their mental prowess being able to nullify dizziness and mentally reflect dust particles. Now let's discuss Hoohoo, the guardian of the latter portion of the ascent. While it's usually not noticed, Hoohoo during the minigame utilizes 4 pillars, then during the fight they decide to regress and only use 2. While this is a random detail, it actually foreshadows Hoohoo's weakness of not being able to detect the location of their pillars, implying that in the past, Hoohoo when fighting with 4 pillars would lose track of their location, causing them to look like a fool when they would pop out of the ground with nothing guarding them. With the rest of the bros' ascent being easy, they make it to the peak where we find Blablanodon, whose reasoning for being missing was incubating an egg, though unfortunately he did not know that what he was incubating was Drago Ho-Ho. This boss fight is pretty much a constant fight to keep height on Drago to make their attacks easier to dodge, but unfortunately, this boss's constant vertical gameplay element would be shamelessly stolen by Fortnite years later with the inception of cranking 90s in build fights. And in an insane twist, we learn that Drago Ho-Ho was actually Prince Peasley transformed, though with the prince now saved and the adrenaline fading, us now knowing that Cackletta is able to transform creatures into anything you can imagine means that she probably has many spies planted all across the Bean Bean Kingdom, all blending into their surroundings right under our noses. But before we part from Hoohoo Mountain for good, we run by to get our hammers made by that Hoohoo block that fell into the Hammerhead shop. Though, while visually they only managed to make 1 hammer out of the Hoohoo block, what seems to have happened is they stacked the hammers perfectly parallel to our point of view, making it appear like 1 hammer when in reality it's 2. And lastly, to leave Hoohoo Mountain, we must prove that we can ride minecarts, but during the ride, for some reason, even though Mario decided to ride on the fully bright track, he still decides to hog the flashlight from Green Bro, who clearly needs it more than he does, showing us one of Mario's character flaws, which is a hate of sharing. And that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed, you know what to do.